Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my Dune Awakening content. So today folks, I want to talk about something that a lot of people have already talked about, but I want to give you my take into this system. I want to talk about the building system in Dune Awakening. So to start with, I just want to preface this video by saying that this content is from the beta, but it's content that has been released by the developers for people to use. And no, I am not in the beta, and no, I am not under an NDA, so I don't have to worry about that. But this content is released by the developers for free use anyway, so just to let you know that, because I know I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments about, hey, you're breaking the NDA, blah, 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 but that's not a thing. So let's talk about the building system, because that is something that I'm super passionate about. I come at this from the experience of a Ark Survival Evolved and Ascended player, and also from games like Conan, Enshrouded, just No Man's Sky, all different kinds of games that allow building systems. Now, I do have a lot of experience in this with this mechanic, and it's something I'm super passionate about. It is going to be something that's really going to be exciting in Dune Awakening because of a lot of the mechanics that I'm seeing with the information that I'm watching. I'm really liking, so that's really positive for me. There's just so many things about the building system in Dune. It looks like they've really paid attention to the market as far as what games have come out lately that did things right and kind of the mistakes they made, and they've improved upon it. And I think that that is super awesome. So let's get into it and let's start looking at the building system. So right off the bat, you're going to see the sandworm. That's going to be a big concern for people in the world, because you need to be conscious about where you're going to build your build because of this guy right here. If you plop down what's called a sub 5 or a 5 console, and we'll see that here in just a minute, it gives you a build radius that you can then build within. That's basically you planting your flag saying, this is my space, basically. It gives you, it looks like to be a square build radius, and it has height and it has width. So it also allows you to have a zone in which you are the only one that can place down structures, and you can place them with a height as well. You'll see that in the zone that the sub 5 console throws out whenever you place it. And we have found out that from discussion on the official Discord from the community manager Iggy, he did state in some discussions, and I can't find that right now, but I've seen it and I know it's to be true, that you can expand your building range on your console. Now, whether that is through questing or whether that is through you paying a certain amount of resources to unlock that ability, or whether it's, just do a lot of quests in the building style mechanic to unlock that ability, I don't know. But that's something we're going to have to find out going later. But it is important because obviously, as we play the game and as we acquire resources and more stuff, we're going to need more space to store it all. More ornithopters, more sandbikes, more collectors, more all kinds of stuff. You're going to need more space as your account ages and you acquire wealth. So that's going to be a really important thing, that we can expand that building radius. Now, talking about the sandworm again, I kind of got off track, sorry. The building zone that you place whenever you place your sub 5 console or your 5 console, just the building console, I'm going to refer to it from now on. If I was to place it in this area where my cursor is and my whole build zone radius was out in the sand, that would be a bad mistake because that would be an area where the worm could then come and eat your house. So that's not going to be smart. Don't build on the sand. If you build in an area where there is structure around, like the rocky areas, it may not be the most perfect level building area, but at least it will be safe from the ability of the worm to eat your structure. So you don't want that, because all the work you're going to put into this building, you want to make sure that it can stay safe. And there's other mechanics that you're going to have to think about as far as, and we'll get into that here in a minute when we see it, as far as, you know, placing generators, placing shields, placing windmills to, you know, generate power. Those kind of things are going to be super, super important as you're building your building, because they're going to be things you have to think about. But these areas right here you're seeing where there is rocky terrain, those are going to be some of the smarter areas to actually build, because that's going to be where you're going to be safe as far as your house. Now right here we're going to see the mechanic of placing the fife. This person is actually placing the sub-fife console, and from what we understand right now, we have the ability to place two buildings. They can be anywhere as far as PvE content or PvE, or PvP, I mean, excuse me. If you choose to do in the PvP zone in the deep desert, though, you will have to be aware that it's just temporary, because it will wipe once a week, and that includes structures that are built there. So if the risk is worth the reward and you want to plop down a harvesting base so that you can take advantage of a spice blow that your guild may control or something like that, then that may be worth that. You know, just a bare bones fob that you put there just to be able to harvest resources and do the logistics of getting them then transported back to your for sure safe base area where you store all your goods. That may be a thing. We don't know going forward, because we're not really sure how hard it's going to be to defend something like that, and if it's going to be worth the trouble or not. You know, it may just be a situation of people just go into the deep desert and harvest and then come back with it immediately, rather than trying to set up a fob or something like that. But in this screen right here, we're seeing this person looking around for somewhere to put this console. And as you can see, they're looking on the sand right now, and they're going to place it right here. Now this is an interesting mechanic to see right here, because this shows you that there are going to be building restrictions as far as your zone and where you place your personal zone, because right here we can see that it says it's too close to another sub-fife. So there are going to be places where you cannot place this because of locality to another person's building. So that is cool to see, because what that will mean is that you can't place your structures right on top of somebody else, and that's always a mechanic that lends itself to griefing in the PvE building space. And it's very annoying, because like this guy's base off in the distance here, he's got a cool setup. He's got a really cool location. He's up on the rocks. He's got some platforms for his ornithopters to land. He's got some structural support with a little deck and landing pad here. He's got a really cool setup going on, and the fact that we could come along and plop a house down right beside him may not be cool to him, because he may like to have this area all to himself. So the ability for you to not be able to place right on top of each other is very good. I like to see that, because coming from a game like Ark, Survival Evolved and Survival Ascended, I'm telling you, the griefing is a real thing. If you played that game and I say the words pillar spam, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know how aggravating that was when people put pillars everywhere and you couldn't build. So hopefully that is not going to be a thing with this game, because of the way they've decided to do this space that you own is contingent upon this console right here. So what that means is that eliminates the aggravation of something like pillar spam, where people run along and put pillars all over the map with a certain distance away from each other. And what that does is whenever you come along with your console to try to put it down, you can't put it down anywhere because you're too close to another enemy structure no matter where you go, because there's thousands of pillars all over the map. And that was one of the dumbest things that they ever designed, honestly. And I just couldn't understand why, even after almost 10 years in the ARK space and people crying about pillar spam over and over, they never did recant and do something like this. But I'm telling you, the Thief console is a much better idea, because that way you have your own personal space. You don't have to worry about putting up pillars everywhere to secure yourself a spot of land. And it makes it fair for everyone else, and it just makes the environment so much better, because you don't have to look at building spam everywhere where people are just trying to, capture the land. So right here we see, I think, if I understand this correctly, when we go to place down a structure, it throws up this little window right here in the required materials that shows you how much an item costs. So right now it looks like this Thief console costs 25 metal. And I think the way this is represented is that this is the cost and this is what the player actually has in their inventory. So right now they're trying to put down a fife, which costs 25 metal. They have 192, so when they place it, it will automatically deduct that amount from their inventory, is how I'm guessing it. It's what it looks like. Now, in regards to the material costs, there is something that I have noticed when watching this video later, where it shows what happens when you demolish a structure or when you put one down and you pick it back up, type of thing. A lot of games don't refund the building cost. A lot of games only refund half the building cost. A lot of games don't allow you to pick up a structure once you put it down unless you demolish it, so you lose it all. This game, it appears, as of right now, in the testing phase, it gives you all your materials cost back and puts it back into your inventory. And we'll see that later. I'll show you that here in a minute when they shows this person picking up structures they put down. So that's really encouraging. I like that. I hope that continues throughout release, because if that's a situation where they've just got it set that way for testing so that people can actually have freedom to experiment and then they plan on changing that later, I hope they leave it the way it is, because I like to get my resources back, especially when I'm trying to build something and kind of experiment with how I want the look to be. I may have to place something 15 times before I get it in the, the look I want, type of thing. So if they didn't refund your building costs, then that would be a major hassle, because then that would be limiting your creativity. You wouldn't be able to experiment as well because you're constantly be needing more resources. So this is a really cool thing to see. So we're looking here at the different types of structures that are available. When you go into your building menu, I see that it's called a CHOAM level 1. Now I know that from other videos that I've watched that CHOAM is just an acronym for a company in game that mass produces items for sale on the exchange. I think the exchange is even called the CHOAM exchange, and it's just basically a corporation or a company that kind of has a stranglehold on the market, and they produce these items in the CHOAM style pattern. So you have a certain look for types of items, and I don't know if it changes as you level up in the skill or in the, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, in the building style, pattern, the chome pattern. It looks to be this stone, meshing with the environment type look. Whether or not you can level that up and that maybe adds more doodads to it to make it more special looking when it's a level 2 versus a level 1, I don't know. But this is a building style. In other words, when you place a chome structure, it's going to look this way type of thing. Now, are there other styles? Like, can you build in a Harkonnen style, for instance, or can you build in an Atreides style? Excuse me. Don't know, because this is all I'm seeing so far from this content. I'm only seeing the chome style, but that's what that means. It's not a certain type of building material. It's an acronym for a company that is, got a stranglehold on the market type of thing, because they are the ones that basically run the exchange from what I'm understanding. So that's what that means. One of the cool things about this menu is whenever you want to go into structural, you can see all the different styles of things you can build. You have your pillar support here, you have your pillar, you have your upper support, you've got your curved, it looks like foundational type, triangle foundational, square foundational. So you've got the ability to build a lot of different shapes with these. And in like Ark, we only had like the square and the triangle. We didn't get any of these curved building pieces. So that's going to be really exciting to be able to have this curved building piece, because that's going to allow a lot of different shapes that in Ark we had to come up with curves with triangles by placing them certain ways so that it made a curved shape. But I like this idea a lot better, honestly. Then they have it sectioned out as far as roofs, walls, inclines, specials. That specials will probably be things like lighting attachments, or fancy little doodads that go around doorways, or something, just anything like that. So that's really cool. Now you have the ability, using the R button, to change the set that you're using. So I'm assuming that if you're going to change a building set, you're going to go to a different style. So that's really pleasing to see that, because that hopefully means that they're going to be different styles to build in with different looks. And that's very cool to see. So we see right here the player is going, she put down the 5 console, and you can see the building range that she has right now. This is the green area, is the area she can build in, and it, right off the bat, it doesn't look huge, but we know that it will be able to be expanded, so we know that that will get bigger over time. Right here you can see the outer boundary, and it shows its verticality. I don't know if we're actually going to get to see a shot here in a minute where it shows the top boundary of the vertical. We'll go through and kind of look at that right now and see if it shows that. Let's let the video play just a little bit, and we'll see if we can see a verticality to it. See the square, the boundaries. Okay, right there. Okay, so right there we get a shot of the verticality of the building space. So it's hard to judge from this image right here, but it looks like you could go up. Let's say this is 1 pillar height. Let's just guess that this is from here to here. I don't know, 15 to 20 pillar height probably, it looks like. So does that possibly mean you could have multiple levels of, like 5 to 6 levels on a building structure? It appears that way. But if we look in the distance over here, we can see another structure. Now, it's hard to say if this is a player created structure or if this is a placed point of interest type thing, because it's kind of hard to tell without actually being in the game and being able to run up on this structure and get a pop-up to tell us whether or not it's a player created structure or not. It's hard to say. But if this is representative of the upper zone of your personal building zone, then this shows that you can get quite a bit of verticality out of your base. So if that's what this represents, a vision from afar of what we're seeing right here in this building area, I'll be very happy with that, because that will give me more than likely plenty enough space to be able to do the interesting things that I want to do, because I'll definitely want some landing pads. I'll definitely want some storage areas where I can bring vehicles inside if they're affected by the storms and the shields don't cover them. We'll have dedicated crafting areas, dedicated resource storage areas, things like that. Entry, egress, ramps, stairs, drive up the ramp into the, to park your bike inside or whatever. It's going to be really cool. I am somebody that always likes to build structures like this, because I like to have my structures elevated off the ground. I guess that's just my ARK upbringing, because what that does is that usually, in a PvE map anyway, that usually gives you elevation from the rabid dinosaurs that could possibly be attacking your dinos and your base, and that gives you a layer of protection. I'm going to probably focus on making my buildings up off the ground like this, so I like to see this pillar type design that gives me the ability to, make a base go higher up off the ground. So I really like that. In here you see the required materials. Now in the Chome set, we're talking about a granite stone resource cost. It doesn't look ridiculous either. I mean, this is the pillar support and it costs 8 granite stone. So that looks to be completely doable. And you can see right here that in the player's inventory, they have 481 stone. So the ability to carry resources with you looks to be pretty forgiving. I don't know if there is an actual weight limit on your inventory carrying capacity, but this player had 140 something scrap metal and 481 granite, plus whatever else they're carrying in their inventory. So not really sure if that's a beta testing allowance where they're being more forgiving, and then when the game releases we'll see a lot tighter restriction. Not really sure about that one, but that's interesting to see that amount of resources in their inventory, because a lot of people have asked the ability for people to help you with the building while you're building. You can put down a structure in the blueprint mode and then they can come along and fill it with resources to actually build it. Is that because the inventory restriction is so tight that you can't carry enough materials to build a whole base while you're doing it? Or is that just because they're just making something cool to where multiple people can help? That's an interesting question, but this right here is very telling, so that is nice to see. I want to be able to carry lots of stuff. I like to carry lots of stuff. So another thing I want to point out while we're here is you can see a quest pattern. You see the quest Give Me Shelter, and it's underneath the category of the shelter and shields. So this is interesting because this makes you wonder, is this the ability for you to level up your building abilities so that you can expand your fief down the road? I don't know. But right now you see this player has Construct Foundations 4, and they're part of the way through it. Construct a door, construct walls 7, and then they're going to complete this Give Me Shelter quest. So as we progress through this video, I'm going to watch that and see if that actually shows completion at some point, and we'll see if it gives you some kind of level up notification or what. So that's really interesting. So this notification that we're seeing right here, placement blocked by another object. I don't know if this person is trying to place another pillar support on top of the one that's already there, and that's why they're getting this notification. That's what I would assume, but that's also interesting to take note of. Okay, yeah, that's what it was right there. You see, you're trying to place this structure into another one, and that's why it's giving you that notice, but it's not like hitting a snap point and automatically, you know, like throwing it up here to a line on top of this to make a wall or whatever that is. That looks like the player has this thing selected because you can see the little purple box around the item. So it must be a pillar of some sort that he's trying to place, but it won't allow him to place it there because there's already a structure there. So that's what's going on with that. You can see that they also have a different quest line going, a salvage junket, where you deliver salvaged metal to someone. It sounds like because you are going to deliver it, it's a quest you picked up from somebody. So that may possibly be a clue to another, you know, quest giver, which is going to open up a different skill path for you if you complete some quests for them. One of the things that's really cool that I like about this is you have options to manipulate your building pieces. By using left alt, you're going to be able to rotate. By using adjust height, you're going to do left control. Place the hologram so that you can look at it and see if you like it before you build it, I guess. So you could, from what I understand, you can build a base in complete hologram mode to start with before you decide, you know, what you want to do. And then by using this command right here, you go ahead and lock it in place and build it. So this is the piece picker and the ability to manipulate those pieces. So that's really cool. We look down here in this other little building icon menu and you see your piece picker. You have the ability to repair. You have the ability to move. That's move, the word move underneath that bar there. And then you have the ability to demolish. So those are kind of your abilities that you can use on probably an already placed structure or being able to choose which piece you want type of thing. So that's some more controls that are interesting to take note of. Now, the ability to repair obviously means that you are going to have structure decay. Whether that means that your structure decay is happening because you don't have a shield, or because your power generation source has went offline because you ran out of gas or whatever, and your shield is now down and now the environment is taking a toll on your building structure. That's cool to see. I like to see that a lot because what that means is structures will decay, and hopefully when they get to a certain point they will demolish themselves. A lot of times in games like this you'll see structure timers. When you run up on and look at a structure, you can usually get a gump that pops up that says what tribe built it or what person built it and how long that structure has before it fully decays and then demolishes itself and removes it from the environment. In Ark, that was one of the funnest things to do, was to go around and look at people's structures and find people's bases that obviously didn't play the game anymore because the different tiers of building had different demolish timers. Like thatch was like 8 days, wood was like 10 days, stone was like 12, something like that. But whenever the timer counted down and the player never did log in to render in those structures to refresh that timer, then that structure would decay and demolish and you could go pick up all the loot, and that was a really fun time because you could claim everything and it was kind of like a treasure hunt in a way. It was very, very, very fun to do. I hope that in this game we have the same mechanics because we will have structures inside our bases for storage, like storage boxes and things of that nature. So hopefully if the buildings do decay and players are no longer active in the game, why would you allow those structures to stay in the game indefinitely? Because if the players aren't even logging in anymore, let's say they haven't logged in a month, and their building is still sitting there, it's basically keeping other people that are active in the game from claiming that spot and building their legacy on what might be a really super cool piece of land, like this guy's base. That looks to be, you know, a nice spot the way he's done that, so I may want that spot if he ever decides to quit playing. So hopefully that will happen, and then we will get the ability to take the items that they had in storage and make them ours, because this is Dune and there's a thing called first salvage right. So if you're there first and the structure demolishes, I don't understand why this game wouldn't allow you to take those resources for your own, because you're in the desert and the desert's unforgiving. You have to find every advantage you can. So I fully expect that to be a thing. So that's really cool. So let's go ahead and move on a little bit. I'm kind of talking a little bit too much and not even showing you the building. This is cool right there, because what that shows is the 5 console is still in the building zone. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out right there. Because does that mean that the 5 stays there the whole time? And is that something that's just constantly going to be in your way? Or is that something that you actually want that 5 console to stay in a central location in your base, because you may go to it to do other things, like open up the menu on it, put resources in it to constantly allow your base to repair structures automatically by having resources in the 5 console will allow you to do that? Or do you open up a menu and then you can level up the 5 console radius of building zone by interacting with the console? I don't know, but it looks like that stays in the world once you place it there, and it's not just something that, you know, you place it and then it disappears type thing. So that's really interesting to see right there. So let's go ahead and move on, find something else interesting to talk about. You see they put pillars down and they're using what appears to be a ceiling tile there so that they can make a raised floor. You see some stairways going in. The way they're doing that is really cool. They're getting some verticality, possible multiple levels. It looks like this person's making an entryway right there. One thing I want to note right here is structure support. That right there was what I was waiting on, that little bit right there where this person demolished this pillar. This is a very interesting thing to see. Okay, they demolished the pillar. All right, they were able to place the ceiling tile, or if this is some sort of floor, I don't know, but it's more than likely a ceiling tile, being it's not in the square box foundation type look. It's used to make a raised platform off the ground using ceiling tiles if they have multiple uses as far as roofs and floors, like in Ark we'll see, but that's a pretty common thing among building systems to allow you to build raised platforms like this. But what I want to really point out is one of the things in games like Ark that was always kind of annoying in a way, but it was something you could work around, was structural support. So this person has got 3, ceilings in a row here, and it's not anchored anywhere other than the stairway. Now the stairway is then anchored, but these ceiling tiles here are not anchored. And in games like Ark, you could only do that for a certain amount of tiles before it would turn red and not let you place it, because it would say you need structure support under it. So you would have to eventually put a pillar all the way anchored into the ground so that it would actually provide structural support with the building tiles above it. So this is really interesting. to see this. I don't know if we just haven't reached the limit yet. Let's say that if this player tries to place one more ceiling tile right here, it turns red and says you can't do this without building support. I don't know. I haven't seen that notification yet. So I'm wondering if building support is even a thing. I mean, as long as you have something to anchor it to, can you just make a floating floor as big as you want within your building range without any kind of support at all? That would be interesting, because then that would open up the bottom levels to be able to move more freely around without pillars everywhere. That would be really cool to see. So you see that the player is trying to place other structures there, and they're hitting snap points. Okay, they put the pillar there, and now they have support, but was it necessary? I don't know. This is a pillar top, this is a pillar middle, and the pillar goes all the way into the ground without having to have access to a foundation, so that's cool. This is a floor. Okay, so this building tile is called a floor. Okay, one thing I want to point out right here is this is what the resource granite looks like. This is one of the granite resource nodes out in the world. So they look to be fairly common because you see multiple ones here and there, and throughout this video you're going to see shots of where there are resources around this player's base. But one of the things that I'm curious to really know, and this is going to be something that's going to be really important for builders to know, is what is the radius for respawn around a base. In a lot of games, whenever you place a structure that throws a zone around that structure, that it will not allow resources to respawn back in the world once they're harvested. So is the resource respawn radius encompassing this granite stone, so that if I go down there with my little harvesting tool and I collect this granite and it's now gone, will it be able to respawn because it's so close to this base? That's going to be super interesting to know, because obviously as you progress in the game, you're going to want to build your structures close to really nice resource deposits, especially if there's high level resource deposits in a certain area. You're going to want to go out of the granite area and move to the mithril, or whatever it's called. I don't really have a list of all the current building materials, so I can't really tell you what the top tier of resource nodes are going to be at this time. That's going to be something I dig into here in a little while, so that I can kind of figure out what those top tier resource nodes are. But let's say mithril is the most important metal in the game, and it populates in the overworld in a node like this. If you build your structure right next to a mithril node, will you be able to just walk out your door and harvest that thing every 5 minutes or whatever it takes for it to respawn? Because in games like this, there's going to be a respawn timer on resource nodes, because that's just the way it is. Players have to be able to have the ability to farm resource nodes over and over and over in set locations, so that they can build up their base of resources to be able to do structures and craft and whatever they want. But will this respawn this close to a base? And that's very cool to know. Some other things that are interesting, points of thought on resource nodes is, will it always respawn as a granite? Could it possibly respawn as a higher tier? Will it always respawn with the same amount of quantity of resources in it? Will it be able to be harvested with higher tier tools and return more resources per harvesting attempt? It's that kind of thing. And what's the respawn rate? And are the nodes static? Do they constantly respawn in the same spot? Or once you harvest this stone, does it randomly appear over here now? Those are the kind of interesting things that are going to be really cool to find out once we get into the game and can actually see how they have those mechanics set, because resources are so important in a game like this that a resource node location may actually influence your building location more than you realize. Because if you have 5 or 6 mithril nodes right here on the ground, and that is the most important resource in the game, guess what you're going to do? You're going to build your house right here so that you can step out your deck and harvest those resources, and throughout the course of playing the game throughout the day, you may amass a huge amount of resources that other people don't have because they're worried about constantly driving their bike over to the resource node to get it instead of just stepping out their front door. So knowing where a resource node spawns is going to be key for advancement in your building tiers, because you're going to need those higher tier resources at some point. There's going to be crafting stations that you're going to want to build, things like that, and they're going to require better resources than just granite stone. I guarantee you, you're not going to be able to throw down a blood purifier or a fabricating bench made out of just granite. You're going to have granite, metal, plastic, all different kinds of stuff to be able to do that. So resource nodes are highly important in a game like this. So we're seeing here how the person can, think about placing their objects. It's telling them that it must be attached to a socket, and here we go right there with the curved building piece. That is so cool. I really like the looks of the curved pieces. That's going to allow for a lot of variation in style of building. This is something that a lot of games have, but some games don't. Ark is an example, and I'm sorry if I keep, getting on to you with the Sark stuff, but I've played Ark for almost 10 years now. So that's where the biggest batch of my experience comes from in a building system, because the things you could do with that building system and the builds you could make were just so amazing. But the curved pieces is going to be really a lot more cool than people that don't understand building systems really get at this time. That allows you to make some really unique looking structures, and the fact that we have curved flooring, curved walls, curved roofs, that is going to allow you to make some really, really neat structures, and I'm very glad to see this. Right here, we look up here at our Shelter and Shields quest path. It looks like they did the foundation one and that one dropped off, so we're getting somewhere with this. Hopefully they'll finish this in the course of this video and we can see possibly what the reward for that is, because I have a feeling that this Shelter and Shields build path is going to help you to expand your building skill or maybe your fife range. I think that's maybe going to tie into that. That's my suspicion anyway. I don't know for sure because, like I said, I'm not in testing, so I don't know. I'm just like the rest of you at this point. I'm relying on information that's been released by the development team, and that's what this video is. Okay, now that I'm done crushing on the curved building pieces, those are amazing. We see the continuation of the floor. It doesn't seem like this person has hit a building limit as far as what can be done without structural support. So I'm really watching for that. One of the things that's cool about this is you have the ability to swap a piece, probably by using this rotate command over here. You can swap it between inner and outer. That's a common practice with building pieces because an outer look that's exposed to the elements will have a different look than an inner. It'll affect the way probably doors work. If you put the outer face facing out, the door may open a certain way. I don't know about doors in this game though, however, because I don't think we're going to see doors that actually physically swing open and close, because from everything I'm seeing, doors are more of a portal or a side-to-side opening type thing, like an automatic door at Walmart. When you walk up to it, the sensor opens the door. I do know that these doors, from what I've seen in other discussions on the official Discord, they do open automatically when your presence is detected. Like right here, when you get here, the door senses you and opens. I have a feeling you can probably change those settings, I hope, to where you can make it not do that, or make it do it and stay open longer, or make it do it and close real quick, because there is issues that have come about in other games where even in PvE there are times when people are going to want to grief you, and I hope they take this into account, because if there's situations where you're going up to your base and somebody runs along behind you and sneaks into your base with you, they can cause you problems. They might just get in your face and aggravate and annoy you while you're in your base, and you can't get rid of them and you can't kick them out, so it's just whenever they decide to leave type of thing. Or there could be situations like in other games, like in Ark, I'm inside my base and I put down a dinosaur egg on the ground to hatch it. Now somebody that sneaks into my base can run up there and grab that and steal it from me. So this is kind of a thing that I hope they consider, the ability to lock it down to where it doesn't open and you have to physically push on a button to say open, or I hope the automatic sensor is something that you can kind of adjust to your needs to hopefully keep that PvE griefing to a minimum. Right here we see the door face, and then that was exactly what I was talking about the automatic door. You see that it closed after a few seconds. I don't know if that... Okay, here we go. So we have some destruction of tiles right here, and this is really interesting to see, because this is going to answer the question for us about build resource cost replacement when you destroy. So when he destroys the building, you see he has 292 granite, and it's going to cost 8. After he does that, it goes up to 300. So that means he gets full refund on building costs. So that's really good to see. I really like that. This looks to be the destruction mechanic, because we have the remove buildable option set. So he did one, and now he's going to do another one, and it's showing the increased cost as you go. So it's 8, 8, 16, that type of thing. So you can see that you get full cost back, and while he's in that mode, it shows the total of resources he got back. So that's some more of that curved building structure. He was trying to place a foundation just there, and it said insufficient stability. So I think that means that the foundations can't just be placed up in the air all by themselves. They have to be placed in line with another foundation. So is there stacking? I don't know, but that would be very cool if there was stacking with foundations, so that you could, expand your building ability. One thing we do need to talk about in regards to windows, you have the ability to make windows, and you can see through those windows. So that's always very cool, because I'm the type of person that whenever I build a base, I want to be able to see what's going on outside my base. Are people running around doing stuff? And I want to kind of see that, because I like to see, the activity in the world makes it feel more alive. Is there a reason that I want to see out of my windows? Do I want to constantly be able to look out the window and see when a resource node that I've got my eye on respawns, so that I can run out there and get it before somebody else does? But you have to remember that Arrakis is a desert, and it's an unforgiving desert. So when you have windows in your base, that's going to allow the sunlight to come in. And while that's going to be a nice thing while you're inside your base, because it won't be dark and you can see what you're doing, the ambient light should increase inside your base and allow you to kind of see better inside there without having to have lights everywhere. You will have to be careful about being in that zone where the light comes in, because it will apply sunstroke to you if you stay in it very long. Just like being out in the sun and being in the sun and you get sunstroke, it will happen if you stand in the light inside your base as well. You do get a shelter buff while you're inside your base. I have seen that, and we'll see that on this video as well once this person puts the roofs up and starts to actually enclose the space. But the light coming in through the windows will be hazardous to you. So if you're someone that needs to go AFK for a while, let's say you're running a fabricator and it's going to take 30 minutes to actually, you know, create the items that you have queued up in it. This is just an example. I don't know what it's going to be like, but let's say it's going to take 30 minutes to, you know, produce a stack of polymer or whatever, and you decide that you want to go AFK for a little while you go do the dishes, and then you're going to come back and check your build in the fabricator. You don't want to walk away while you're standing in the sunlight, because you may come back and find yourself dead. So and if you drop your bag on death inside your base and it times out, you may lose your gear. So you have to be very careful about that. But that is going to be a thing, so you need to be aware of that. We'll see it here in just a minute. When we enclose, this person encloses this building, you'll start to see the sunlight coming through, and you'll see the areas where sunlight is and where shade is. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. Okay, now that they've enclosed the floor, they can finish closing off the building. The outer walls, anyway. Oh, and I missed it. I missed it right here. I don't know if they changed it to a different skill path or whatever, but it did change to a different quest line. So let me kind of go back just a little bit. Okay, here we go. This is where the quest line completed, because the other one dropped off, and now as they put these walls, they're going to finish this quest pattern. So let's see this quest line completion right here. Okay, one more, two more. Okay, there it was right there. So the quest line completed. You saw the check mark happen and it filled up with a different color. Let's look and see if we see some kind of gump on the screen that shows a reward. I don't see one right off the bat. Okay, it just changed to Shelter and Shield's Desert Power. So I didn't really see any kind of a notification of any kind of leveling up or anything like that. So I don't know. I was interested to see that, and it finally happened. But now we move along to the next chain of quest, and this could possibly just be a building tutorial type of thing as well. It could just be to help you get started in the game, to learn how to build, or it could be a leveling mechanic. I'm not sure. The jury's still out on that one, so I don't know. But now they've moved on to the Desert Power quest line, where you're going to have to construct a small storage container, construct a fuel-powered generator, process fuel in the generator to power the base shield. So this right here gives us confirmation that we will need a shield to keep our structures from decay from the harsh environments. This is a PvE zone. I think I didn't get a shot at the map, so I'm not 100% sure if they're actually in a PvE zone or a PvP zone, but I'm assuming it's a PvE zone, honestly, so we'll see. So now they're continuing on. Oh, there we go. That was interesting. So I noticed the notification about it exceeding the horizontal building limit right there. Let me try to catch that as it happens. Okay, right there. It says exceeds horizontal building limits because they have the ghost formation of their structure outside their wall, and I think it's because they have reached the edge of this zone. So if they place this structure, it will be outside of their zone of influence that they have control over. The wall must be like right here on the zone of influence, and they've built right up next to it. And I think that means that this is going to, breach through that, and it will not allow you to do it. So thinking about where your building limits are in regards to where you possibly place your first pieces might be a real consideration, because if you want to get every square inch of your building zone radius that you can, you may want to start placing your foundations and walls and pillars right up against the building limit area and then build back, or build against it this way and build forward. That way you make sure that you can try to capture the most of your space you can. It may be advantageous to actually set up a line of foundations within your building zone at first, so that you can get an idea of how close you can get to it on this side and how close you can get to it on the other side. And you may need to kind of adjust your starting foundations so that you encompass the most space of your building zone you can. So that was something I was kind of watching for, to see how they handled once you clip into that building zone. So that was interesting. Sorry to keep replaying the same section, but I keep finding more little nuggets that I want to talk about in there. There we go, the inner face and the outer face. See there, they put the outer face down and it did not have the window, and that was interesting. So they placed a curved structure and didn't encompass all of the pillar face, so that'll be interesting. Here's the curved wall going in. That's kind of cool. I really like those curved wall pieces. Those are nice. This is an interesting piece. Angled roof corner. And then the ability to kind of close those gaps with these roof cover half height, right and left. Those are kind of interesting pieces. Those are going to add a little, design interest to it. And right here you can see the outer wall of their build space. So yeah, they are right up against it. So any more ceiling or floor tiles projected out to the side are going to clip into that. Oh, here we go. We got the drop ship scanning us. So it appears that even during this building session, this person is having to hide from the scanner beam. I wonder, it looks like it goes by and it actually scans that area, so they're having to hide from it so that they don't get stunned. And right there you saw it go by inside their base, but it did not shine down in the area where there was shade where they were at. As long as you're under a structure, it appears that you will be safe from this drop ship light, because they are standing right here in the shadows. The drop ship light actually did not touch them, so they did not get stunned. You do see right here the example of the unsheltered debuff though, so I'm assuming that that's going to cause your thirst to rapidly go down and your stroke to possibly go up because you are unsheltered, so that's something to take note of as well. When you have walls and your roof in place, I think this will turn into a sheltered buff that will actually probably either help you heal or allow you to have a decreased rate of depletion of your thirst and stroke meter, and possibly a stamina gauge. That looks like what that is right there, like an energy gauge type thing. So I think the shelter buff is going to be very important because the climate is, out to get you, so you have to be sheltered from it. But this dropship light thing is really cool, because I think what that means is when you have a roof in place, you're going to be safe in your base from this dropship light. So even if the dropship flies over your base and scans all over your base, it looks like you're going to be safe from that. So that's interesting to see, so that you know that it can't get you while you're in your base. So that was really interesting to see that happen while this person was actually building. There's a shot of the drop ship and the huge Bene Gesserit ship in the distance there. That's The scale on that's amazing. We have snap points on pretty much all the building pieces, so they, you know, it kind of gives you a guide as far as how it's going to place when you put it down, so that's really interesting. There's another one of those angled roof corners. Those are going to be kind of interesting. Add some architectural flair to your building there. It's kind of neat. It looks like the cursor is actually going to, the cursor that you see on screen, that little X, is going to actually determine where your place is being placed at. Like right now they're looking at the edge, and that will allow them to place a wall or whatever. What's that? I want to see what building piece that was just then, because that was a rather interesting looking building piece that will allow you to adjust height and things of that nature when you're putting them down. Okay, that right there. A railing. Okay, cool. So the railing is going to be really neat, because that looks like that will allow you to make like balconies and things. So that will be really cool. Hopefully it has multiple uses as far as the direction you can put or the rotation angle. Maybe you can put railings like this going diagonally to put railings upstairs and all kinds of stuff like that. I hope they have that ability. That's going to be really neat. So it looks like they're going, and there was an example of trying to place a 5 console again, but here we go with the storage containers. This is going to be cool because that's going to complete this quest up here when he puts it down. So there it went. Then we've got a fuel powered generator. So let's look at that in detail. There we go. There was a fuel powered generator. There's some more railings. That was interesting. Ooh, cool. I did see something I want to go back and look at right there. So like we were talking about earlier, when a player uses their structure, their doorways, I saw a little pop-up come up that said manage. And what that makes me wonder is it looks like you will have control over your door options by this manage icon that just came up. So hopefully you can, you know, set it to automatically open when a player that owns the structure is in the zone, or you have to actually click it to open, or you can set the timer on how long it stays open, or the speed at which it does open. Maybe you want it to open slow for visual effect, or fast so that you can hurry up and get in your base because you don't want to waste time. That's going to be really interesting, and by the manage option, that's really cool to see. I like that. So that answers that question. Then we've got the storage containers. When they look at that, that showed some options. They're going up to another level. Okay. I kind of skipped over that. This is what I wanted to look at right here. This fuel powered generator. This is going to be a key component in your base, because what this is going to do is this is going to power the shields, I'm assuming. In your utilities slot, you have your generator, and then not really sure what that is. Maybe that's a 5 console. I'm not really sure, but that's interesting. But here is the cost. As of right now, if this stays true from the beta on into release, it appears that it's going to cost you 45 salvaged metal to put down this fuel-powered generator. So that doesn't really look like that's too big of a deal. It doesn't look like that's going to be too hard to do, so it's not going to like limit you right off the bat because you need a lot of rare resources to be able to power this or place this thing down. So that's cool, because salvage metal is going to be one of your more common resources that you gather, like your granite, your salvage metal. It's going to just be laying around everywhere. So that's really cool to see the cost of such a critical component of your base be reasonable to where you can actually afford it. That's cool. All right, let's look at the storage containers. because I want to see those options again real quick. So, okay, cool. So we have the option to use the storage container, which is more than likely going to open it up. And manage, which probably means that you can set, you know, some specifics like who can take items out of it, who can place items into it, those kind of things. So that'll be really good for guild permissions. Because there's just certain things that you're going to want to lock down. There's going to be resources in this game that are so hard to get and so expensive that you can't just allow any old Joe Blow to come access your storage container and possibly say, ooh, check that out, there's some mithril, I'll take that, thank you. You utilize your manage options to be able to set those permissions, and there may be, that's going to be one of the things that I'm really interested in seeing as far as what the permissions are able to be set for guild members and then just for random people and just all kinds of stuff, because that will kind of dictate what you can do with your storage. There may be times that you may want to set a storage container out on your deck and your landing pad and make it accessible to anyone, you know, so that you can say, hey guys, if anybody wants some free granite, I've got, you know, 2,000 in this storage container at my base, feel free to come take whatever you want. A lot of people like to do stuff like that. A lot of people like to take loot that they don't want and don't need and throw it into a container for other people to take, you know, just as a give back to the community type of thing. And, you know, you need to set different varying levels of permission for your guild members, because you're going to have people that you know, real life possibly, you know, and you trust them 100%, so obviously they would have access to this container always. But there may be new recruits that join your guild that you really just don't know and you've just let into your guild, so you don't really want them to have access to all your mithril or whatever, plasteel, or whatever the highest level resource components are going to be in this game. So you have to get to know them first, and you set varying levels of permission. Maybe this is the initiate container, this is the officer container, and this is the owner only container, the leader only, you know, that type of thing. And that's really cool to see that. Quick deposit is really cool because that kind of harkens back to a dedicated storage box in Ark where you could just run up to it and bump it and click on it, and it would automatically deposit certain items that it was set to receive always. So that was really handy, and I hope that they make that kind of a mechanic in there. So that's really cool. I like the look of the storage containers. They look like they're designed to survive the elements and be sealed from the harsh environment. That's really cool to see. I like the looks of the storage containers for sure. So right here we were looking at a menu of the storage inventory. Let's go back and look at that real quick, because that was really interesting. Okay, here we go. Let's try to capture it right at the menu. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So this is the actual inventory of the storage container. It shows the amount of slots. And I guess this was a small storage container. It has 5 slots, I guess. I don't know if these are able to be expanded later by leveling up the storage container or something of that nature. That's interesting to see these extra little spots that look like they're able to be expanded upon. Whenever you put something in there, it shows that it does stack, so that's cool. So let's say I had 10 of these, and it looks like this is called a circuit. Maybe this is because it's highlighted, maybe it's calling it a circuit. If I have 10 of these in my inventory, I should be able to run up to it and throw them in there, and they should stack on top of this 177 total, because that's a rather random number right there. So I doubt that's a capacity of a full stack. I think that's just increasing. Who knows what a full stack will be. Right here you see that the player has 193 granite, and this is in the player's backpack. So this is obviously granite. This is obviously a fiber. Don't know what that is. Don't know what this is. These are like components. This looks like a currency, and this looks like another type of stone type resource. So you can see that the stacks are increasing in their inventory, and we don't know what a top limit of a stack was. But I did see when the player was building earlier, they had 800 and something granite. I wish they would have showed their inventory at that time, so we could have seen if that 800 granite was all in one slot, or did it break up into slots of 200 and they have 3 or 4. It'd be interesting to see, but that'll be something that we can definitely answer for ourselves as we begin to play the game. It looks like these resource icons have little identifying icons on them. This looks like a type of resource possibly. This is granite, this is fiber, and it's considered a environmental thing. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe this is a metal of some sort. Not really sure what these little symbols mean right here, but these electronic component, it looks like, has the same as this sheet of polymer or whatever that is, sheet of paper. I don't know. The currency doesn't seem to have one though, so that's interesting. Don't know what this icon refers to right here, but that's kind of interesting as well. So just things that we don't know at this time, but it is really cool to see the inventory and the storage interaction icons, to where you can actually see the interface that you're going to interact with to be able to store this stuff and do things with. I don't really see any way to change any kind of settings on this, but I guess storage and general settings, maybe this right here is the menu that you can go into to change the permissions. I'm going to assume that's what that is. And you can go into a storage mode where you move stuff, or you can go into a settings mode where you change like who can actually interface with it. So that's really cool. This is really interesting right here because this appears to be the currency that you will use in the game, I'm guessing. It's got the S on the coin, and I cannot remember what it's called. It's like Solari or something like that. I think that is what the currency in the game is, other than spice, because you know spice is going to be a main currency in the game. Obviously, the whole lore is built around spice, but this looks to be like the Solari or whatever it was called, and I'm going to assume that because it's a coin shape and it has that S on it right there. So that's interesting. That's the first time I've ever seen the visual representation of that coin in game so far, so that's kind of cool. So this is the storage. So that was an interesting question that I wanted to see solved. What this is right here, I don't really have a clue. Does that mean that the storage actually needs power to continue to power it, and it takes 2.7 or 27 volts from the generator to be able to power this storage? And is this going to be some kind of limitation as to how many of these items you can place in your base based on the power output of your generator possibly? That's interesting. Interesting thought. A lot of games, they'll say you can only have 6 storage, building 6 storage items per base or something like that, or you can only put a certain amount, and maybe this is due to the power draw that this item has. Maybe a storage container actually has some kind of electrical shielding mechanism to keep the items inside safe, and this is how much its power draw on the generator is. I don't know. That's just a wild guess. I have no clue as to what that is, but the V is almost indicative to me of like voltage or something like that. I don't know. But here's a 47V on the player's backpack, so yeah, it's possible that is not what I'm thinking it is. Maybe that's a V for volume, and it's saying that oh yeah, there we go, volume right there. Okay, so I didn't see that until just now, but that right there shows you kind of the limit of your storage volume. Okay, cool, because there's max up here, and yeah, that's exactly what that means. That's volume. So that's how much stuff you can actually hold. So that right there gives us an idea of the carrying capacity of a person in the game right now in beta. Obviously, hope it will probably change on release, but it looks like they're close to about half of what their carrying capacity is right now. So, you know, based on weight, they might be able to carry about a little more than twice this. These bars beside this are actually kind of interesting, because I'm wondering if maybe that might be indicative of what a full stack is. So if this is halfway to a full stack, then maybe that means that like 400 would be a full stack of granite or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. And maybe that's what this is as well, showing how close you are to a full stack of this circuit item. And then it shows the storage of your container from the lowest to the max, and they're, you know, barely into it right now. So that's really interesting to see. You have 1 out of 5 item slots taken. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've got 1 out of 5 item slots taken, and then the volume is 250 at a max, and you're at 27 right now. So that's cool. Yeah, I just now seen that right here too. So I'm learning too, so bear with me here. 125 on the volume, and you're at 47. I don't know if this is like, who knows how that's measured. And then also up here you see your little currency counter. You see the S right here, which relates to this coin, and the amount relates to this. So that's obviously what that's telling you, how much currency you have on hand. So this is the backpack, and there is a drop down right here on the player theirself. So does that mean that you can have multiple backpacks? Does that mean you can have a backpack and like a belt pouch, and you look at the inventory of your belt pouch too via this drop down? I don't know. That's curious. That's really interesting to see. So let's go on. This video is going to be 5 hours long by the time I get done. I'm sorry, there's just so much I want to talk about. Okay, right now you saw that player was unsheltered. So this is really super cool right here, because that's showing the player pick up different items. They're picking up salvaged metal, copper ore. Let's get a good shot of that so we can look at those resource nodes a little better. Okay, so there we go. So we're picking up some kind of cell, and this is what I think is copper ore, and you can see the nodes are just on the ground in random places, and it's relatively close to the base. So I'm kind of wondering about that respawn radius zone like I was telling you about. Right there, the player got 1 copper ore by picking that out, and they also got some experience. So that's kind of interesting to see. You gain experience by just harvesting resources, so that's cool. A lot of games don't give you experience for doing a task like that, because it's just, you know, assumed that you're going to be doing that constantly. Now, albeit that's a very small level of experience, that's only 2 per that 1 item you picked up, that 1 copper ore, but just the fact that you can get experience for doing that is actually really cool. I don't see anywhere where there's kind of an experience bar for the player. Maybe that's what one of these bars are. That's obviously hydration level. That's more than likely stamina. This is like a health type, you know, thing. I don't know what that one is. So maybe that's possibly experience or something like that, and they're showing how close they are to a level up. That's interesting. Then do you get more skill points to put into skills? I don't know. But this shows your volume. This shows your experience that you got in the item you picked up. So it's really cool to see these resources so close to your base like that. That gives me hope that you'll be able to place a base in an area where there's good resources and be able to constantly harvest those things. So that right there is the blood purifier. This is going to be a very important piece of tech for your base, because what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to take blood that you extract from your enemies and turn it into valuable hydration, turn it into water that you can then use to drink to stay alive. The cost on that is 70 salvaged metal, so that's also very promising because that looks like you're going to be able to do that without too much restriction. Now, one thing I've noticed right here when I'm looking at this gump for the blood purifier, I see what looks like an energy bolt and a 10. So what that means to me is that my thinking when I was looking at the inventory screen earlier is kind of on point, because it looks like all these structures, especially the crafting costs, the crafting type structures, are going to have an energy cost. And does that mean that your generator can only support a certain amount of stations? And then the next question obviously leads into, can you level that up? So that's really interesting right there to see that. So that lets me know that this generator over here has a certain energy top out, you know, as far as how much output it can put out in the items that you can place in your base. Maybe that's not really a concern, because maybe you can place multiple of these and then you can double your, you know, voltage output type of thing. But then you have to also consider you have to fill them both with fuel now. So that makes your chase for the gasoline even that much harder. So that's interesting to see how players are going to go with the minimal amount of cost for the maximum amount of crafting efficiency. Is going to be very interesting, because I think that energy cost will probably only apply to things like shields, crafting stations, defenses, that kind of thing. It's not going to probably apply to just your normal upkeep on your structures. That's probably just going to be relevant to the shield, really, and not the generator. Only something that's going to get powered, I think, is what you're really going to be worried about for that voltage output. So you can use, drink, and manage. This is really cool. The interface with the blood purifier. It looks like you have the normal type interface when you access the item, and then you have general settings over here again. So possibly that means you can lock this thing down as well, if you only want to allow it for a certain level of person, or, you know, guild members only, or only you, or just everybody. That's interesting. You put the blood in by depositing it from the sacks that you collected, or the sacks that you filled up whenever you were out in the wild, and it fills up the meter, and then you process it and it turns it into water. You have a circuit capacitor and a water capacity as far as how much the item can hold, and then you can extract it, and, you know, that type of thing. Right here we get a message that this person named Xantara is probably feeling it by now, off-worlder spice. So it's obvious that they're saying that you're ingesting spice in the atmosphere while you're just hanging around. So that's funny. This must be some sort of a tutorial type thing, to where the tutorial's talking to the player or something. I'm not sure who this person is, but that may be a quest giver or something like that. But this is a really interesting thing to see, because this is going to be an interface that you interact with a lot. If you're going to survive in this game, you're going to have to generate water somehow. So that's cool. So right here you see that the player is actually able to interface with these little lights, and you have a decoration of wall light. You can actually increase the lighting in your base. So like when it's nighttime, you can turn on the light and have a little bit more, you know, ambiance, and be able to see a little better. You can change the building set, so there's obviously different build styles, and then hopefully there's settings menu on these things to where they automatically come on at night, or you leave them on at all times, or only when you click it to access it type of thing. I hope that there's some general settings on those as well that will allow you to do that. So that's really cool to see those lights come on. And the actual light that they shed in the area, you can see the area light go up when they place those. So that right there was the end of the section that I had. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to go ahead and call it here because I don't want this video to go 5 hours long, and we're already at an hour and 20 minutes. So I need to go ahead and cut it off. And only the hardcore building nerds are probably have stuck with me this long throughout the video, but I hope you found it interesting. From my building experience in other games, I kind of can get an idea about what's going to go on just based on what I'm seeing in this video. Like I said, I am not part of the testing. I am not under an NDA, and this is content that has been released by the developers for content creators to use, so it's free to use, so it's out there for everybody to see if you want to see it, and you can analyze it just like I did. And I hope that my experience from other games will help you understand kind of what's going to go on in the building system. I think this is just my opinions because none of this is actual, other than the content being released. I don't have any actual facts to back up anything that I'm saying. I'm just kind of speaking from experience type of thing. So one of the really cool things about this building system is that all that work that you saw going into that building can then be placed into what's called a blueprint and sold on the Chome exchange for other people to buy. That way they can take your interesting structures with a lot of flair and design and throw them down for themselves, and then put the resources necessary into that blueprint to build it, and boom, they can have that structure that you created. So that is going to be really super exciting. I know that there is me and one of my other members in my guild, Scorpion Strike, is going to really fascinated with this mechanic, and we're really looking forward to being able to do that, to sell those on the market. I hope that the return on investment for those items is good enough to cause people to want to do it. Hopefully you could make a profit at it. If you're good and creative, you can sell a lot, I hope, because there, a lot of people just don't have the ability to build and think creatively in that manner. They just build box bases that look like a big box, and that's all they know how to do. And having the ability to buy somebody's creativity is what's going to make that mechanic so special. Yes, I get it that you don't get the resources with that. That's up to you. You got to gather those resources. If you're not going to put the creativity into the build, the least you can do is, pay the person that had the creativity and then go get the resources yourself, because that's what we all had to do. But just the ability to have that capability is so cool. And that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the building system for Dune Awakening. So thank you for watching my content. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the building system from what we know now as all my opinion, pretty much, basically. And if you found this content interesting, please consider subscribing and liking it. And if you did do that, then by all means, click the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I drop Dune Awakening content, because if you like what I'm doing, you may not want to miss it. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. I will see you in the next video about Dune Awakening coming soon. Peace.